think that's important.
Okay.
Senator Rose Conway-Walsh.
Thank you, Gair. Look, and you asked the question really that I was going to ask in terms of the action points and what specifically had been done. And do you have any figures on how, say, we started this September, October, in if there has been movement in the prices over the last 4 months, the cost of insurance? So motor insurance.
There was CSO figures before the end of the year that showed a decrease, but it was only a one-off set of figures, so it wasn't enough to establish a trend. All I have received is really anecdote, which anecdote is going up and anecdote is going down.
Yeah.
So what I have requested from the section is to try and see if we can get more detailed information as to what trends might be being established, because it's important as we do our work that we can monitor that trend as well. So I think it's something that we all need to be alive to, because what I don't want the impression to go out there is that we're all waiting for the end of a 2-year process for the premiums to change. As each quarter passes, as each action is implemented, that should help to bring about a condition whereby the insurers feel it is prudent to be able to reduce premiums. So we need to be able to track that as well ourselves. But again, giving caution, people who are contacting deputies and looking for a 50% reduction, it's not going to happen. But one of the things that we have put in as a recommendation insofar as consumer protection is extending that period of time where they can shop around. And what I have heard from people anecdotally, and we do get a number of submissions, is that they've been quoted by a company, and we discussed it before actually, Senator, and the initial quote they get from their company is very, very high. They go to the company, they offer a lower term that's more acceptable. They go back to the original company, and the company meets that. So in our protections for consumer, we want to give as much space and detail to the consumer to be able to do that piece of work, recognising that it is a market and sometimes we do have to shop around, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. I think until we actually see the specific actions, it's difficult for us to have an in-depth discussion. But one of the things clearly was where people were given, they were sent their bill and there wasn't transparency around that as to what justified the rise. Is that one of the things that has been now changed? So when can people expect to get their bills, and it will outline clearly why the premium has gone up or why the premium has gone down?
So recommendation 1 speaks to the insurers to set out the reasons for the large premium increases, and the idea was that we're going to develop a protocol by the second quarter of 2017 of this year, and if necessary we'll put legislation in to underpin that. Insurance Ireland has informed the Department of Finance that an implementation committee nominated by the insurance company CEOs has been formed to progress this issue. So on their side they're already working to establish that protocol. That protocol then be shared with the committee, the working group. And it's a question that is if I'm happy that that's robust enough in terms of the exchange that I would have had with you previously in committee, and I think Deputy Doherty as well, as to what exactly we wanted to be in that. And that'll form the basis of getting that in place by the end of the first half of this year. And then we'll see where we go from there. Now, recommendation 2 and recommendation 3. Recommendation 2 is the insurers to provide additional information on the premium breakdowns. This is a further piece of transparency to help people understand basically what the different component parts of that are. In the timeline that we have in the action plan, that's for the second quarter of 2018, but the Central Bank of Ireland has informed that its Consumer Protection Directorate has included the specific action points within their work plans for the second half of 2017, in line with the timelines in our report. They've also provided a point of contact to the Department of Finance for consumer protection related topics. So what you'll see when we get this across to you is that because we're working across a number of departments and a number of different agencies as well, I'm quite happy from the feedback that I've gotten to date that everyone is taking this as seriously as the government and as the Oireachtas is taking this. And they are already putting things in place this year at the moment, right now, in terms of personnel or action plans to make sure that they meet their obligations as they are outlined in the column relevant bodies in the action plan and the report.
So you're saying by the second half of this year, people can expect to get bills where their costs will be itemised on those bills, so they can clearly see.
Yes, the protocol, as per the action plan, is to be developed. Let me just double check that. Is for Q2 of 2017. Now, it depends on when the actual premium has been renewed for the customer. That's when they'll get that breakdown. So that will be a rolling thing depending on the renewal dates for consumers. But as you'll see, it's actually the first action point under recommendation 1 is Q2 of 2017.
Okay. I would say as well in relation to the claims, because there's a talk all the time about people are claiming more. I would put it the other way around, that many people are not claiming because they're so afraid of claiming that it's going to put their premiums up even further. that they try and pay the costs themselves when they're involved in accidents. But I want to ask you around it, because the transparency again and the raw data that was being made available was a big issue. Is there more, can you see it now in your dealings, is there more raw data being made available now for analysis than there has been heretofore?
Yeah, so, and thank you, Senator. So, I mean, improving data availability has been a kind of key challenge, I suppose. It's been around for a number of years, but we've really tried to get our hands on it since last year. And we've set out in the action plan, I'll speak actually directly to the points, if you look at Objective 2. So what we've done is we've decided that it'll take a bit of time to establish a national claims information database, and we've put in place 3 action points that set out how we're going to go about that. So action point 22, to get the specific key aggregated metrics for immediate publication and commence the development of a national claims information database. That's setting out what metrics we're looking for. Putting in place the legislation by Q4 and having the database established by Q2 of next year. But I didn't want to wait that long to actually start getting information from the insurance companies, because during the process of putting together the report, they were feeding information into us. So what's happening at the moment in the department, and it's already begun, is that together with the Society of Actuaries and Insurance Ireland, we're putting together metrics that we can publish quarterly until the National Information Claims Database goes live. So I have seen a change, and I feel it's a positive change in terms of the information that's now being supplied. It won't be perfect information. Once we have the National Claims Information Database hosted by the Central Bank, that'll be a very strong, robust system. But what we want to do is get relevant, pertinent information out now as quickly as possible. So it won't be complete, but it'll hopefully be enough to be a start on that revealing of transparency, and that in itself will have an important effect on the market, we hope, as well.
Just finally, because I know there's one to get in, we had a presentation yesterday from the Irish Immigration Lobby and on the theme of returning immigrants, and obviously one of the big things around that was that the huge premiums that people returning to this country are being charged. Is there anything specific that's happened since the report came out that would ease the burden on those who are both being refused insurance and being charged huge premiums?
Yeah, so I had a detailed conversation with Insurance Ireland about this at the time, and then with the individual companies. It was one of the things I think I put to every company as they came in, was how they treated returning immigrants. And people had different policies. A number of insurance companies, if you were coming from a former Commonwealth country that drove on the same side of the road, really didn't have a problem with being able to insure you. But because we saw there was an inconsistency, we decided that we had to kind of set out a number of measures insofar as the insurance company, the insurance industry, bringing consistency themselves to this. So recommendation 6 in the report and actions 10 through 13 speak about putting in place a standard of information for consumers, about implementing policies to accept driver experience from abroad, where a person has driving experience in Ireland and is coming from the country that drives on the left side of the road. That's action number 11. Action number 12 is about accepting driver experience from abroad, where a person has previous driving experience in Ireland and is coming from a country that drives on the other side of the road, so taking account of that. And action 13 is about the Insurance Ireland making a report to the department as to exactly what they've been doing in that regard. The first report will come in Q2 of this year, and then we'll get a final report at the end of the year to make sure that they've done exactly what you want them to do. And a brief update on that recommendation 6 is that Insurance Ireland is already examining information as to the different approaches that have been taken to date by different insurance companies, and they're going to come back to the Department of Finance very shortly, so we can then see the different approaches and then work with them to decide what the standard approach should be.
What I would ask you to do finally would be to any of those actions that have been implemented or where you see progress being made, if you would report it back to this committee so that we can keep it monitored as well, and we can keep up to speed to know that the value of all of the meetings we've had with all of the actors in the industry has paid off somewhat, as well as us obviously having the CSO figures which will tell us whether premiums have gone up or down, but the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and we've always said that we didn't want to just feed into a report that would be left on a shelf that wouldn't have the desired effect that we needed to have in terms of making the insurance industry accountable and bringing down premiums for people right across the board. So,
like I said,
thank you, Caoimhe.
I think that's very helpful, because at the same time, from my perspective, there was no point in us putting in all this work, putting in place a timeline and action points if people weren't going to actually hold us to them. So we will have quarterly reports, but I'll also make myself available if you ever want to come in and get an update as to where we are exactly, or perhaps something appears in the media and you're concerned, well, we have this in the report from the Minister, we have it in the Joint Oireachtas report, what's actually happened in the last month or two. And I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.